Correct.
I'm sure this memo is written before the 29th of March.
Yeah, it was written on March 19th, and then, so that's what I'm saying. It was written on March 19th. The objection period ended March 29th. So to my knowledge, and maybe Carrie has different information, we do not have a local government objection.
This is Carrie Craig. I don't believe that we do.
All right, that's my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant for buds below zero? Okay, so on the motion to approve with delegation, the application for buds below zero, license 23813, Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. DeShook.
Yes.
You're back on. Thank you. Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
I appreciate you guys' work during this time. I know it's crazy for everyone right now.
Yep. Okay, so we are now on to tab 20. Catalyst Cannabis Company, license 23821. And this is so Mr. Klinkhart.
Members of the board, this is an application for a retail marijuana store in the municipality of Anchorage by Catalyst Retail, LLC, doing business as Catalyst Cannabis Company. Over.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve license number, or application number 23821 with delegation, Catalyst Cannabis Company.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody online from Catalyst Cannabis Company?
Yes, this is Jason Brandeis. I'm the attorney for Catalyst Cannabis Company, and I believe that Will Schneider, one of the owners, is also on the line.
That's correct. This is William Schneider.
Okay, thank you much for identifying yourselves. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none at this point, I will ask. In the premises diagram, it looked to me that, and you did say on the MJ03 that you would maybe be applying for a on-site consumption. And it looks like in the diagram, you have a lounge area that looks a little bit bigger than the retail. And it's also appears to be under a section that says open to below. My question had to be, one, given all the restrictions, and you haven't put in an application for the on-site, is in fact the lounge and the actual retail, is that separated by a wall so it's not open to below? Or just exactly what is the structure there? Because the drawing is not clear.
Okay. Yeah, if you could help reference what drawing specifically you're looking at, but I can try to explain it pretty detailed.
So if we call Jerry and have a call.
Excuse me, somebody who's having a conversation about calling Jerry, could you please mute your phone, please? We're trying to conduct a interview. Go ahead, is this Mr. Schneider?
Yes, this is Mr. Schneider. So,
okay.
Basically, it's a 18-foot tall space. So, and most of it's just a super tall ceiling. There's a mezzanine on the east portion of the building that kind of goes above the point of sale areas. Between, in the light green area, space 107, which is the lounge, and space 108, which is the retail. Those are both, what we're trying to get approved right now, and nothing related to on-site consumption. If we went to, and so those are separated by a wall, so the lounge is kind of just another an area for a secured check-in before people can enter into the retail floor. Neither of those areas would be the areas that we would consider for on-site consumption if we chose to do that in the future. It would be the space to the north that right now is just labeled as future build-out, which we haven't, we're not under any lease agreements, and that space hasn't that space has not been completely built out yet. So it's unknown at this time what the owners or who the tenant's going to be of that space.
Okay, thank you very much. That's helpful for me. Are there any other questions from the board members?
Mr. Chairman, Bruce Schulte, I actually was looking at this wrong, so I appreciate your question because it helped me understand this better. Yeah, I mean, until and unless they decide to do on-site consumption, that'll obviously raise other questions. But yeah, right now I'm content with what they've got.
Yeah, the explanation helped me a lot. With the 6-foot separation and limited stuff, hopefully they won't have 5 people in there waiting to get into the retail spot. But they'll certainly have to work out those issues locally. So any more questions from the board? Okay, on the motion to approve application with delegation of license 23821, Mr. Dishook.
Yes.
Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
You're
Thank you, guys.
Okay, if I get my iPad to respond here. Okay, so we are at tab 21, Country Cannabis, license 24049, tab 21. Mr. Klinkart.
Members of the board, this is an application for a retail marijuana store in the Matsu Borough by Country Cannabis, LLC, doing business as Country Cannabis.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Move to approve with delegation, application number 24049, Country Cannabis. Schulte.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Thank you. Who is online from Country Cannabis?
Through the chair, Jana Waldine, attorney for Country Cannabis, and my clients Sarah and Jennifer are also on the line with 2 licensees.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board members for this applicant?
Now, this is Jaime.
Okay.
License or the press.
Mr. Jaime.
What is that large restricted area? It looks like on the first floor.
Large. I'm going to punt this question to Sarah, and I just want to make sure you're talking about diagram 1 and 2, the first diagram underneath the signature page of MJ. Okay. So Sarah, the large restricted area, you see that?
Yeah, it's the large restricted area, access area on floor number 1.
Right. The point of sale area.
That is the point of sale area.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that has to be restricted. That's where marijuana is stocked and stored and then sold from.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Schulte.
Yeah, just to Mr. Jaime's question, if we're looking at that first floor plan, the lower right-hand corner that's boxed in red, if I'm reading this correctly, the area to the left that's crosshatched, that's the counter. That's the retail counter?
Correct.
Okay, and then the area to the right of that is the restricted access area where all the employees are
Correct. And
only are allowed?
Okay.
Exactly. And then the stairwell has a locking door, and you go up the stairwell, and then there's a restricted access area there. That's the office. And the record storage and the marijuana storage.
So the whole of the upstairs is storage or employee access only?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, my questions are similar. When you look at the last photograph, I guess next to the last photograph, it shows Heritage Birth Center and then what looks like a silo. I assume maybe that's a stairwell. But it says Float Alaska. Is Float Alaska inside the building that Country Cannabis is located in?
So it's not. And Sarah could probably do a better job explaining this, so I'll take a stab and then pass it to Sarah. But there's basically only an entrance from the birth center area. There's an underground stairwell, and it goes under to these float tanks that are underneath Country Cannabis, but not accessible through any access. And Sarah, you probably would do a better job clarifying, so why don't you take a stab too?
Yeah, so there is an underground. Oh, thank you. This is Sarah Lorimer with Country Cannabis. There is an underground tunnel that is accessed from the Heritage Birth Center that goes under the ground and then accesses Float Alaska. There is no access from Country Cannabis floor number 1 or 2 to Float Alaska.
Okay. Is Country Cannabis despite the silo which sort of blocks the view, are the Heritage Birth Center and Country Cannabis two separate buildings?
Yes, sir. If you scroll down to the last page on our application, it has a front-on shot of both buildings. There's a
I see the car in between.
Yeah, there's a 9-foot breezeway between the two, and the silo is actually our stairwell to the second floor.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, my last question is, you talk about the entrance, retail entrance and exit, and your ID check is all across the room by the counter. Are you going to have an ID check at the door?
Yes, we have built a kiosk to have an ID check at the door, depending on traffic flow and if we are busy. We have a kiosk to check IDs right at the door if need be.
Okay. Are there any other questions from board members?
Nope.
Okay, so on the motion on license 24049 Country Cannabis, with delegation, Mr. DeShook?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I just want to say thank you so much for your time and getting us in, despite everything that's going on, and to your staff. They've been great. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you. Okay, we are now on to tab 22, Primo, license number 24383. Mr. Klinkart.
Members of the board, this is an application for a retail marijuana store within the municipality of Anchorage by Primo Farms North, LLC, doing business as Primo, and the objection period ends on April 4th, 2020. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve the delegation, application number 24383, Primo. Schulte.
Is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Thank you. Who from Primo is online?
Jana Waldine, attorney for Primo Farms North LLC, and Dan Ferguson, the licensee, is on the line.
Okay. Okay, are there board questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chair, this is Casey DeShock.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So my only question, and this is my first meeting on the board, so I have not seen as many applications as others may have, but something to clarify would be in the rental agreement, a portion of the rental agreement is an amount of gross sales paid to the leaseor. Is that 1% of sales is that fixed over the term of the lease, or is it something that's variable? And does the leaser have any say in the operation of the business?
It's well seen.
Hi, this is the new person, and it is fixed for the term of the lease, and there is no variation.
And Dan, let me fill in with the legal questions. In the regulations, there is an exemption for percentage-based lease arrangement with the landlord. The landlord cannot have any control over the business, though.
For your information, Mr. Deshuk, this has been an issue we've had at times, not recently, but in the last couple of years, where we have had leases that have said, 70% of the gross, 80% of the gross. In one way, that was to help finance the project, and so we did have to put in a regulation and work with the industry to change that. This is one of the lowest percentages in a lease I've seen.
Okay. Yeah, I was just, as I was looking through some of them, not all of them hold that, and I wanted to see how the relationship was between the person who's operating the business, has the license, and the person who's renting the property. But I think I've got an understanding of it.
Yeah, and you asked a very appropriate question, and I commend you for catching that in your first meeting. So that was a very good question. Any other questions from board members?
Yeah, the only, I don't know if it's so much a question or a statement, but on the MGO3 supplemental, I don't see anywhere where it talks about marijuana card handlers or handler permits for employees.
I think you'll find that in the MJ01.
Yeah.
And there should be section, trying to get to it here.
Section 6.4.
Got the checkbox?
Nope, it's the one that says describe any in-house training that will be provided to employees and agents. And then it says apart from marijuana handler course, but of course we do put it in there.
Right. But I think there is a checkbox right above that, isn't there?
Oh, there is. Yes, there is. 6.3.
Each licensed employee or agent is required to have a marijuana handler permit, and that signature's off. So that indicates that they are aware of that.
Oh, sounds good.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so on the motion to approve license 24383 Primo with delegation and the municipality of Anchorage protest, so that's part of the delegation. Mr. Deshuk?
Yes.
Mr. Hyman?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
And that completes the new retail. The next section up is the testing facility applications for Land and Sea Laboratory, tab 23, license number 23634. And before we get started, I would like to ask Mr. Klinkhart if this application has been forwarded to DEC, whether DEC is on the line, or what is the status of our relationship with DEC, which for us, I think as we recently approved, they are the quality assurance and the review of the application, the review of the processes. So we do have that signed part of the testing. So before we get started, could you describe where we're at with DEC on this particular application?
Yeah, I'm just checking to make sure I don't confuse it with another one that we actually got, all of the DEC stuff was approved and they're actually getting ready to do an inspection. So let me just confirm in my email here real quickly. If you want to continue, I will find that for you. Over.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Then is there a motion on license 23634?
Move to approve with delegation, application number 23634, Land and Seas Laboratory. Schulte.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Miller.
You. Who is online from Land and Seas Laboratory?
Good afternoon. This is Jessica Alexander, the lab director, and I have with me Wade Alexander, director of operations. We're the majority owners of Land and Seas Laboratory, and excited to be here today.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from the board on this application?
Excuse me, Mr. Jones. This is Carrie Craig. I just wanted to give you a quick update on about the DEC. Our examiner says DEC approved their SOP and quality manual. If the application is approved, we will request, sorry, I had something come up here. I apologize. It covered up this.
Okay.
If the application is approved, we'll request an on-site audit with the Environmental Health Lab. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, Bruce Schulte.
Mr. Schulte.
Yeah, I wonder if they could speak a little bit or explain a little bit who Jade Management Services is and what their role is going to be.
Okay, Ms. Alexander.
Yes, Jade Management Services is the company owned by Wade Alexander and Jessica Alexander. We are an entity that owns the 85% of Land and Seas Laboratory.
Okay, thank you.
It's made of two entities. Yes.
Okay, got it. I'm sorry. I thought I was looking at it backwards, that you guys were the 15%. Okay, cool. Thank you. That was another question. You're getting into a
question. Any other questions from the board? A couple of questions that I have are related to the building and what you're going to do. You state that you're hoping to do lab work for agricultural products for the hemp project that the Department of Natural Resources is trying to stand up, as well as marijuana. And so I was particularly interested in looking at the premises diagram to see what kind of segregation, what kind of separation of marijuana product coming in for testing, how that would be isolated in a restricted access from the rest of your laboratory space, and would that require you to have separate instrumentation so that you possibly didn't contaminate an instrument with marijuana versus hemp versus some agricultural products? So if you could speak a little bit to that, and that may be what DEC is going to deal with, but I need some explanation myself.
Certainly. Very simply, there is going to be absolutely no segregation of those products. As you well know, cannabis is either marijuana or hemp, strictly dependent upon the concentration of THC. Given that, for us, it's a smarter idea to keep it all under restriction in the same locations, treated exactly the same. As a sample may fail and be considered marijuana versus hemp. So this is something that we felt was a best idea is to do disposal, storage, and all testing in the same manner. Now, that doesn't mean that testing marijuana versus hemp doesn't require some adjustments in method and kind of processing parameters. But otherwise, it is the same testing on the same instruments, and definitely DEC would be looking at both of those and determining that the methods for testing one versus the other are adequate.
Okay. Is DEC also working with DNR in terms of their laboratory required tests or those kinds of issues, so that DEC would be the sort of bridge between us and DNR?
Mr. Chair, this is Joan Wilson. I can answer that question for you.
Thank you, Joan. I didn't know you were on.
Yeah, I tried to let you guys know earlier. DNR has not yet named any specific labs for its testing. It's going to have specific approved ones. I imagine they are going to work with DEC, but those discussions or any MOU has not been negotiated to date. So
okay, thank you.
There are separation distances that apply for the growing of hemp and marijuana under the hemp regulations, but that does not appear to be the question here.
No, this is testing, so.
Correct. So they will need for approval DNA requires in addition to DEC.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Are there any other questions from the board? I would also point out to the board that we have a pretty strict requirement in terms of the laboratory director and that person's qualifications. And I'm actually trying to look, I think it's in the, is it in the MJ06 that we find that, Ms. Alexander, because I assume you are the lab director?
That's correct. I am the lab director. Previously,
and
lab director.
Was it in the MJ06? Because I saw the qualifications. Now I can't find it.
It certainly should be. Let's see. Yes, section 4. Oh no, is that? Oh, I'm scrolling through there to find it. But my qualifications were approved when we opened the New Frontier Research, and I have the experience of running that laboratory, which was absorbed by the Land and Seas laboratory.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that the board has reviewed section 4, the MJ06, page 2 of 6, in which Ms. Alexander's qualifications are listed there. And I believe also sort of down in 4.2. I want to make sure the board has reviewed that and the board is comfortable with that. I believe our regulations specifically require us to approve that, and if that changes, that's a pretty significant change in operations that need to be approved by the board before that changes. So I want to make sure the board is aware of that. Is there any questions from the board on that, on those qualifications?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Bruce Schulte?
Yes, Mr. Schulte.
I don't have, I'm looking at those qualifications. I don't have any questions. She seems well qualified. I was just going to make a comment too on the earlier discussion. I think, I could be mistaken, but I think this is the first lab that the board has looked at that envisions branching off into other industries. In this case, hemp. So I'm perfectly comfortable with the notion of them having an essentially secure facility that they're also bringing other less tightly controlled substances into. Assuming, of course, that DEC signs off on their SOPs. And if I could throw in another acronym, I would, but I got none.
Alphabet soup on the telephone is just a wonderful subject.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions before the board on the license application for Land and Seas Laboratory? Okay, hearing none, I will just assume that under the delegation is any issues that DEC may have in the future before this is actually approved. So with that, Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. Deshuk? Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So there you go. And whoever was just printing in the background, could you mute your phone, please? Okay. Whoever just said, I love you, I appreciate that, but please mute your phone.
Well, I do love you. This is Jessica at Language Laboratory, and we do love you, and thank you.
There's a lot of love on this line.
I know. But my wife's in the room, so you know I got to be careful. Okay. We are now on to the section of new license applications for related applications. And so the first one up is tab 24, Good Titrations, license 20827, and this is a retail store. Mr. Klinkhart.
Members of the board, yes, this is an application for a retail store in the city of Fairbanks by FSE Inc., doing business as Good Titrations. Objective period ended today, or ends today. Over.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve application number 20827 with delegation, Good Titrations. And well, I'm going to ask some questions for these characters.
Okay. I'm sure we all want to rake them through the coals, but who is online for Good Titrations?
Jana Waldstein, attorney for Good Titrations, and Brandon Emmett, COO. Brandon, you there?
Yeah. Good afternoon, and congratulations on becoming chair, Lauren. I'm sure it's going to be fun. Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so we have, first up is the retail application, and I believe first thing we should do is there's one objection, and this objection applies to all three of the applications before us. So if either Mr. Emmett or Ms. Welsine would like to address the objection first.
I'll defer to Ms. Welsine.
Okay, so basically the objection has to do with the fact that this is a shopping area. It's in a commercial area. It's actually really good real estate. And the building that this is going into has been empty and vacant for years. I think 10 years almost, if I'm correct. Anyways, this person, Sheila Finch, she objects to that because she doesn't want people that are going to shopping with their families to see a marijuana store, and that marijuana is still federally illegal.
Have you reached out to her, or has she reached out to you all other than the objection?
No.
Okay.
Brandon, no, right?
No, Mr. Chair, we have not. And
okay.
In my opinion, if she had a legitimate concern other than that marijuana was federally illegal and that she does not like marijuana, I probably would have reached out to her, but having considerable experience dealing with individuals that share those sentiments, I didn't feel that it would be a productive conversation. As we all know, marijuana is legal in the state of Alaska, and we must comply with all of the rules that the board adopted to be consistent with the Cole memo. And so we decided to leave it at your feet.
Okay, thank you. Is Ms. Finch online by chance? Okay. So the board is now aware of the objection, and we've had a discussion. So are there other questions from the board on license 20827?
Mr. Chairman, Bruce Schulte.
Mr. Schulte.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going back to this objection because I want to make sure we give it due consideration. I'm looking at the aerial photograph, the MJ2, the last page of the MJ2, an aerial photograph showing the site layout. It looks like this is a standalone building on its own parcel, kind of at the corner of an intersection, and the rest of the shopping center is sort of, I guess, southeast, and south and southeast where I see all the parking?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep, it's correct. It's on that far side.
Okay, so it actually has its own parking area, distinct and separate.
Correct.
Okay.
It's got a big parking area. It's got a lot of space kind of buffering it. It just happens to be, kind of near Walmart.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make sure that I was grasping the scope of the objection, and I don't see that this is going to be a blight on the shopping center, being undue influence, negative influence. So I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board on this particular application? Okay. Just a couple of questions for the applicant, and this applies to the premises diagram, so I guess the question will apply to all three of your applications. It's hard to judge the scale on the diagram, but it looks like the grow is internal, sort of inside the building. Your manufacturing is in the back, and retail sort of is in a U-shaped around. So the portion of the diagram that talks about the cafe and the coffee bar, is that going to, and you show that as part of the licensed premises. So I'm assuming that is a potential future on-site as opposed to you operating Starbucks within your retail. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, through the chair, that is correct. If you notice in the diagram, you'll see that there is a doorway next to the entry desk that separates that coffee bar and lounge area, and we don't intend to operate retail in there until we apply for and ultimately receive an on-site consumption endorsement.
Okay. But you're still going to show that as part of the licensed premise today, even though it may be vacant?
Correct.
Okay. And am I correct that the cultivation is sort of internal in the building and the manufacturer's is in the back?
That is correct. Yes. So we have a fairly sophisticated air handling system within the facility that breaks it up into zones, and so the internal grow that sits in the middle of the facility is its own enclosed unit within the building itself. So it does not share an air handling system or any open doorways or windows with the rest of the facility.
So I'm assuming all of your ventilation then is in the roof.
That's correct.
Okay. Hopefully that's well maintained. I mean, you are in a shopping area, you do have lots of parking, but I can imagine that the unmaintained filters, the odor complaints will pour in fairly quickly if that happens. So, any other questions? Any other questions from the board on Good Titrations license 20827? Hearing none, then on the motion to approve the license 20827 with delegation, Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. DeShook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So, moving on, do I have a motion on license 20829, which is Good Titrations standard cultivation facility.
Move to approve license number 20829, Good Hydrations Cultivation with delegation. Schulte.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this portion of the application? And this is for the standard marijuana cultivation. Okay. I just had one question. Where is the entrance to the cultivation? Is that at that check-in desk or entry desk, or is the access to the cultivation someplace else? I wasn't really able to determine an actual entrance into the cultivation.
Okay, so if you look at your diagram, it is a little bit clouded because of the shading where we identified the different areas, but you'll notice that there is an entrance in the both the far north side and the rear, which will be where employees can come in and out and communicate between the manufacturing and grow, as well as on the far west side of the manufacturing. There's actually that hallway, and there's multiple doors that extend to the side exit there. So all of the areas that face the retail where patrons will be, that's actually just windows, and then the doorways are in the rear by the bathroom and then by the mechanical area.
Want a fine printer,
Okay.
and then they'll come up and...
Are there any other questions? Okay. On the motion to approve with delegation, license 20829, Mr. Deschutes?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the license, I have a Good Titrations product manufacturing 20832. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve with delegation license number 20832, Good Titrations Product Manufacturing. Schulte.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Okay. Okay, so by our rules, we now have the motion on the manufacturing in place. We do have, and I have to find it here, I believe we have 12 products that all require a separate review and motion. And I will just run down from my notes. Good Vibes Barbecue Cup, Barbecue Packet, Cream Cheese Packet, Hot Sauce Packet, Ketchup Cup, Ketchup Packet. Whoever's printing, could you mute your phone, please? Mayo Cup, Mayo Packet, Mustard Cup, Mustard Packet, Good Vibes Strawberry Cream Packet, and Good Vibes Whipped Butter Cup. These all appear to be products using a canna concentrate that comes from the other Good Vibrations manufacturing. Are there any questions, or is for the applicant on any of those particular products?
Well, at least the printer works.
At least the printer works. The ears don't work in terms of muting a phone, but you're right, the printer does work. I had several questions, and I will just do this in general, probably more to Ms. Wilsine as well as Mr. Emmett. On some of the products, especially the ones labeled cup, your packaging does not look like the packaging that you would put this stuff out in. And so how are you actually going to, you're not going to publish the Good Vibes ketchup cup in a ceramic ramekin with no top on it, nor the little paper things you pick up in McDonald's for ketchup. So could you describe what you plan on for the cups, especially on end packaging? And just a reminder that before anything goes out, that packaging needs to be approved, and that will be certainly part of the delegation.
So actually, with the cups, that packaging is our proposed packaging because it would only be for the on-site consumption in the on-site venue. So that's why we had two separate products for each condiment, because the cup is just meant to be, you know, they order some like, you know, French fries, and then they order an edible of ketchup, and then the cup comes out with the French fries, and they eat the French fries and the ketchup, and then they can't take any out. So that that is our packaging. It's the first of its kind, so.
Yeah, no, it's, I know that when I thought, and pardon, that was not the answer I was expecting. It was our understanding that on-site, that the product would be purchased from the retail in a package that could potentially be resealable if they didn't consume the whole package and wanted to take it home, that would be purchased on the retail side, be brought into the on-site consumption site by the purchaser. This seems to indicate that they could be in the on-site and order and purchase a product that would not be necessarily sold to them in the retail place and taken there by themselves. And so maybe that's a discussion for when you come in for the on-site, but I find it hard to approve products to be distributed in a business or part of a business that we have not approved. That's just me. And maybe a couple, if any other board members have a weigh in on that particular issue at this point.
Mr. Chairman, Bruce Schulte.
Mr. Schulte.
It's, I get what you're saying, and we're kind of in new territory here because I think this is a first for, you know, on-site consumption with these kinds of products. And, you know, honestly, I had some of the same concerns about the packaging before I realized that, oh, yeah, these are just never even going to leave the building. So I'm okay with it, with that understanding that these aren't intended to leave the building. They're intended for on-site consumption. It's just new and therefore unfamiliar.
Through the chair.
Ms. Wilsey.
So 306, 370, A3, it says allows a person to remove from the licensed premises marijuana or marijuana product that has been purchased on the licensed premises for consumption under this section, provided it's packaged in accordance with 3 AAC 306, 345. Because there is no other packaging reference in the on-site section, we read that to mean if we allow people to take product off of the facility that they purchase for on-site, which we won't because these are single-use cups, but if we were to do that, then the required packaging that you would find in a normal retail store would be required. I'm hard pressed to find anything that requires it to be, if it's being consumed on site, to be purchased in compliant exit packaging if they're going to consume it on site. Yes, if they take it off site, but I don't see anything in the regs, and maybe Ms. Wilson can enlighten me if there is something else in the regulations that require this, but I didn't see any other requirement for exit packaging standards within a edible that's going to be consumed on site.
Ms. Wilson, I sort of agree with you in one plot, but it's sort of consumer beware, and we do require that the consumer be informed that this product was tested, what it was tested for, what the ingredients are. None of that would be available if you served a cup of ketchup along with French fries, and that ketchup was this particular product. What then would be presented to the consumer is a product without a label, without saying where it was tested, what it was tested for. If it was sold in the retail and then brought over, you would have that label on it in the retail. You do not have that label in the consumption area.
And I think that's a great question, and it was actually a question that I wrote down that I wanted to ask the board, because we were kind of wrestling with that question. And so why we provided the sample label, we were wondering if we could do that sample label just on a card or just on the menu, the daily menu, because otherwise it is just kind of difficult to label a little cup. But we did intend, and that's why we have the label, to have the sample results displayed either on the menu or given a little card to each customer when they buy the product.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Schulte?
Mr. Schulte.
Again, I share your concerns. I think that notification to the consumer is a very important one. I would be comfortable approving it with the stipulation, with the delegation, with the stipulation that there was something made available to the customer, and I'm kind of on the fence of whether that would just be a menu that would be available to them, or something that would be handed to them as they take their products away to go sit down and consume them. It might actually be interesting. It might be an interesting opportunity for them to do it the latter way, something that the customer could take with them, because then as they're consuming these edible products, they could read about them, and maybe there's a opportunity there to educate the consumer at the same time as they're being informed. But I do agree that should probably be part of the delegation.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions from other board members?
This is Jaime. Just a quick question. So, are they planning, just to clarify, they're planning on selling products in the future, the retail, the on-site consumption side, or the retail side?
Ms. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, to Mr. Jaime, if I may.
Mr. Emmett.
Thank you. So if you look at the northeast side of the proposed licensed premises in the diagram, you'll notice the coffee bar outlined in red as a restricted access area. And so this is not only a coffee bar, but is also a point of sale system similar as you see in the southwest corner. So although the retail is U-shaped, it does, the retail itself does encompass that entire proposed licensed premises. And so there would be the restricted access area where patrons who are contained within the cafe would be purchasing their products. So we'll have a limited marijuana menu as well as our infused and non-infused foods menu. And this is where the person would make their purchase as well as receive their product, marijuana, edible or otherwise, and also be given the appropriate information about that product, similar to if they had purchase deli-style cannabis.
And Brandon, I just want to piggyback.
I'm getting ahead of myself here, I guess. So when you do apply for your on-site consumption, you're going to have to redo all the licensed premises, all the operating.
No.
No.
Through the chair to Mr. Jaime. No.
Go ahead,
So
Mr. Emmett.
At this time, we're applying for the entire proposed licensed premises to be the retail. We will not operate, and we will have closed to the public the section that contains the future proposed on-site consumption cafe. If we are indeed approved for the on-site consumption cafe, that door would be opened, and then that second point-of-sale system would come into play at that time. But we do not currently intend to sell marijuana or allow customers into that area unless that endorsement is approved.
And Brandon, I just want to make sure Officer Jaime is looking at the retail diagram when he's looking for that restricted access area in the coffee bar, because it doesn't show, it's the manufacturing one doesn't have those red lines for the retail designation.
Yep.
Yeah, so this would actually be your MJ02 and 20827.
Yeah. Yep.
This is Lauren. Would Mr. Emmett and Ms. Wellstein, would you, given the current health mandate restrictions and the no gathering and yet an application, would a motion to table these products to the June meeting with the understanding that I think Ms. Wilson has heard this discussion, ask her for some advice on how we might proceed and what we think the regulations say or don't say, and basically approve with delegation the manufacturing, but the particular products, put those on a table until June. I think there's some issues here that we really do need to look at and discuss in terms of the labeling, removal, where sold, and I would like to have the attorney be able to have the time to sort of look through our regulations. Would that be objectionable to you?
Mr. Chair?
Brandon, before you jump in now, Brandon, make sure you clarify, is it the cups or the packets?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Wilson. Then that was going to be my point. I would ask, if it pleases the board, that we separate the product, essentially split them down the middle. Those products which are questionable to the board, where we may need greater clarification and would not be applicable until this pandemic is over with, to have those tabled, but to approve. Sorry, guys.
The chairperson has disconnected. The conference will now end. Welcome to the GCI Conference Center. Please enter your... Thank you. Please stand by. If you are the chairperson, press the star key now. Your conference will begin when the chairperson arrives. Please wait. placed into conference. There are 31 participants in the conference.
This is Carrie Craig. We are back on and recording. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Apologize for that. I believe Mr. Emmett was saying that he would like to have those products that end in packet approved if we do, and to table those that end labeled as cup until June.
Yep.
And
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, so my other question, if that's acceptable to the board, then I will we'll get a motion here in a minute. I did have a question on those that are labeled packet. Where is the label going to be on the packet? Is it something attached? You show a packet. I'm looking at Good Vibes hot sauce packet, but I think all the rest of them say the same. And then there's a box that says Good Titrations. And so 10 packets in a single package, each packet would be 5 milligrams. So in the box, there would be those 10 packets. Are those packets going to have any label on them at all?
To the chair, Mr. Jones, we had intended to place those packets within a package and have the label there, if that were agreeable, and then potentially have a THC symbol or something of that nature on the individual packet. We have not had those printed yet. It's going to be a custom product to get ketchup packets that have a warning on them. But we would, for the sake of space, we would treat these packets similar to another edible you see on the market, like individually wrapped candies, where those themselves are within another package that has all of the required information on it.
Okay. And just the box, paper box doesn't look to be child resistant or child proof, resealable. So I assume that if these are approved, once the packaging has been determined, that will be back into the office for review and approval before you actually put it on the market?
Yes, sir. That's correct. So to excuse our lack of sophistication here, but those are just basic graphic representations. We will have compliant packaging with pictures submitted to the board when we actually can get those produced. But they don't exist yet.
Through the chair, this is Dana. Can I make a clarification question?
Please.
So usually what we do is we send the final product and the final packaging and the final labeling to enforcement. I just want to make sure is that still how you want us to do this? I heard Mr. Emmett say back to the board. I just want to make sure there's no confusion.
No, it comes back into staff with the delegation and that everything's approved. If they have any problem, they'll bring it to the board.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay, so
that's what I meant.
So with that, do I have a motion on the products that end in cup?
So through the chair, I have one more question.
Mr. Miller.
It's about the butter. I'm pretty positive in our past discussions and past approvals that I thought the board had the opinion that butter was for wholesale to other manufacturers, but I don't believe we've...
I'm coming up next.
There's some side conversations going on and a child in the background. If you could mute your phone, please, we would appreciate it. Mr. Miller.
So, this is clarification for me. I thought we have told manufacturers that they can't sell butter for consumers. Am I mistaken?
Through the chair.
Ms. Wilson.
Through the chair, my understanding is that if you're going to package butter, like, or any cooking fat, it should be wholesale only. But this is a different situation because this is consuming it on site. And so this is one of those ones that will be tabled. And so maybe we could save that question and Joan can look into it and I could do a little bit more looking into that and then
Sneak shit through.
and then update.
Not if other people got fucking violated for it.
Yeah, excuse me. There's a conversation going on between a man and a woman, and we're having a conference. If you could please mute your phone, we would appreciate it. Thank you. Ms. Wilson.
I was just commenting that's a good point. The intent of this is not so that anybody could buy it and take it home and make edibles, which is the reason for the restriction in the regulations. It is one of the cups, so it would be tabled till June, and I was asking if we could just hold that question and let me look into it more and then let Ms. Wilson also look into it and then have that discussion in June.
Well, and one of the reasons I was asking the question is I'm not sure why we don't sell it for consumers. And, it just seemed like a good time to bring it up. And hopefully, when council's looking at this, unfortunately, she's probably going to have to look back at some of our past meetings of why the board decided that, butter could not be sold to consumers as long as it has the correct dosage so people can make edibles at home. So anyway.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
This is Joan Wilson. I lost connection with you all, but I'm back and I've heard this entire discussion and the request from the board. And I will review it. Conference with Ms. Wilson.
So, thank you very much. We appreciate that. So do I have a motion either on the cups or the packets?
I'm trying to formulate the motion.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move to table the products listed here on the MJ05 that are not individually packaged. Table them until the June meeting. Those products that are not packaged individually, packaged and labeled.
And so I think that's the barbecue cup, the ketchup cup, the mayo cup, the mustard cup, the whipped butter cup. Did I get them all, Ms. Wilson?
Yes. My recollection, I believe so.
Did you get the Good Vibes mustard?
The Good Vibe mustard, yes, cup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the cup.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any objection to that from the board? Okay. Is there a motion on the packets?
So, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the remaining products that are individually packaged and labeled.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, so on the motion to approve the products that are individually wrapped or packaged and on their product label would end in the word packet. Mr. Deschuk?
Yes.
Mr. Heine?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay, so we now have a motion before us to approve the manufacturers with delegation, with some approved products and some products tabled and our attorney will look into the issues raised related to cups. If we're ready for the vote, is there any further discussion before the vote?
Mr. Chairman, just one comment, if I may.
Mr. Schulte. Yes.
As I recall, some of the previous discussion on infused butter and so forth, I think centered around the challenge of making those products discernible from non-infused products. I think that was the main sticking point. These products for consumption in the ones that we've already tabled, are for consumption in a confined setting, controlled setting, are somewhat different in that they have the opportunity to clearly distinguish them from non-infused products. So I think maybe moving forward, this licensee could look at how to inform the consumer, and Ms. Wilson perhaps could look at how do we inform the consumers on edible products within the confines of an on-site consumption, and then is there a way that we can make these kinds of products available when suitably packaged through other retail outlets? I just want to throw that out there because I think this is going to develop into some broader conversation down the road. Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, so the motion is to approve with delegation and number of products, license 20832, Good Titrations Manufacturing. Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. Deschuk.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So there you go. I think sometime next week, if Ms. Miller and I and Mr. Klinkart could get together to sort of recap this so that we're sure of all the questions, and I'm sure that Ms. Wilson will talk to Ms. Wilson and get any others that we might have missed. But I think this is a very important subject, and it's leading into an area that I know lots of the public have some concern about, and whether or not the board is ready to have Amsterdam-style cafe kind of things going. And so anyway, I think it'll be a good discussion to have when we get a little closer. Okay, with that, the next one is Green Grocer, GROWCER, license number 23468, and that is tab 27. Mr. Klinkart.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for a retail marijuana store in the municipality of Anchorage by SHFT LLC, doing business as Green Grocer. Over.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I get myself unmuted here. Yeah, move to approve with delegation license number or application number 23468, Green Grocer. With delegation, I think I said that. Schulte.
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any question, or who's online from Green Grocer?
Dana Weltzine, attorney, and Rick Morset. He should be on the phone.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Are there any questions from the board to this applicant? Okay. Hearing none, then the motion is to approve Green Grocer license 23468 with delegation. Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. Deschuk.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that one's done. The next one is tab 28. It is Greengrocer, license 23503, product manufacturing. Mr. Clinkhart.
Members of the board, this is an application for a marijuana product manufacturing facility in the municipality of Anchorage by SHFT LLC, doing business as Greengrocer. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve with delegation application number 23503, Greengrocer. Schulte.
Okay, and I assume the same person, Jana and Rick, are online?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, are there any questions related to the general application for this manufacturer? Okay, hearing none. This is a product manufacturer. It's a little bit different this time in terms of, I missed it the first go around, I had to go back. There should be a label inside all of the correspondence called marijuana products. And in there are all of the products individually listed. By my count, I come up with 25. It appears that 1 through 12 are concentrates, and 13 through 25 are edible products, most of which use some or parts of the concentrates listed. Does the board have any question on product distillate oil, HTFCE concentrate, tincture, crumble, diamonds, distillate cart or dart, gem and juice, HTFSE cartridge, live resin, sauce, shatter, or sugar wax? I hear no questions. Is there a motion on those 12 products?
Move to approve those 12 products that you just named. Schulte.
Is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Okay. Once again, are there any questions related to those products? Okay. On the motion to approve the products I just read off, 1 through 12, Mr. Jaime.
Yes.
Mr. Deshuk?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, we then have products, if I get this correct, brownie truffles, buddies, canna caps, chocolate chip cookies, chocolate covered caramels, honey spoons, infused honey, lemonade canna cooler, miso chocolate chip cookie, Sesson steamer hot chocolate, snickerdoodle blondies, soda syrup, tiramisu truffles. That's basically products 13 through 25. Are there any questions from the board on those edible products?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Schulte?
Yeah, the only one that gave me pause was the snickerdoodle, because I was briefly concerned that it might be confused with some brand name, and I looked it up, and apparently it's a traditional corruption of a German word, schnicken Schneckennudeln, which means snail dumpling. So I think we're cool.
I think we have approved other products with the Snickerdoodle name.
Okay.
I know early on we tried this board to have people come up with names that weren't in the common lexicon of edible products that could be confused with other things. As you can see, I think we have failed either miserably or appropriately. I leave that up to history. But I would have the same issue with lemonade and tiramisu and chocolate chip cookies, but we sort of done all that. Are there any other questions related to those edible products?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's Casey. Just a general question about the products that I haven't asked at this point, like the soda syrup or anything that's the liquid form that comes in a bottle of which the consumer is responsible for separating the serving sizes, or they're all individually packaged as serving sizes?
Ms. Wilson, you want to answer that?
Sure, yes. So soda's really hard to find, to be able to keep bubbly with a child-resistant cap. So that's kind of why we have to fall back on these syrups. So the serving size are demarcated on the bottle, but it also comes with a this pipette, that goes on the top of it, and it doses it out so that you can see how many milliliters you're actually pulling out of the bottle. And as you can see in the image, is kind of not as good as I would like it to be, but the actual doser is actually demarcated as well. So yes, we're asking consumers to use that dropper with the demarcations and the demarcations on the bottle to make sure that they're getting the doses per 5 milligrams per dose.
Okay, so and I mean it'd be like children's medicine, right? Get a picture out that way.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Makes more sense to me.
You will see in some of the packaging where the bottles have a label put on them that has the demarcations. Others, the line is actually in the bottle. The same with some of the brownies and cookies where there's 2 servings in a cookie. We've required them to have a line between so that a person knows that if they break that in half of that is a dose. We realize that the consumer may well eat the entire cookie or all 10 servings at a go, but we didn't feel we had any control once it had sold if we were taking as much precaution as we can to inform the consumer as to what the dose really is.
Okay. I think that's fine.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve. I'm pausing. Yeah, the motion to approve the remaining products. I'm not sure if I can name them off, actually.
That's okay. I had named them off. Maybe they can go back and look at that.
Okay.
Or listen to it. Okay. So on the motion to approve the products, basically 13 through 25, mostly edibles, consumables. Mr. DeShook?
Yes.
Mr. Heine?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
And Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So on the main motion, which was to approve license 23503 for Green Grocer with delegation and now with approved products. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so we will call the roll. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. DeShook?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So there
Thank
you
you
go.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is Jaime. I'm going to step away from the phone for a few minutes.
Okay. We have 2 more to go, but I think we've been on this call for about an hour and a half now. I show 2:36. Let's come back at 2:45, but it's probably better if nobody hangs up to sort of mute your phone, and we will come back at 2:45.
Welcome to the GCI Conference Center. Thank you. Please stand by. You will now be placed into conference. There are 59 participants in the conference.
hearing anything.
I got one for y'all on the line still here in the intermission. How many tickles does it take to make an octopus laugh? I don't know.
I'm gonna go for it. 7.
10.
10 tickles.
8.
Tentacles. 10 of them.
I win.
Okay, thanks for the entertainment. It is 2:45. I am going to call the Marijuana Control Board meeting back to order. Mr. Jaime, have you returned yet?
I have, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to assume all the other board members are still on. We are now on tab 29, license 23988, Green Degree. Mr. Klinkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application for a standard marijuana cultivation facility in the Matsu Borough by HNP Inc., doing business as Green Degree. Over.
Okay, do I have a motion? Do I have a motion on license 23988?
Motion to approve license number 23988 with delegation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion or who's on for the Green Degree?
Yeah, this is Kirby Coleman here on for Green Degree.
Hi, Kirby.
Mr. Chairman, this is Christina Howard from Matanuska Law. We don't represent Green Degree, but we do represent the majority owner of Alaska Frontier Cannabis, and we would like to be heard as it relates to these licenses, as it relates to also another item on the agenda, tab 49.
Okay, and what's your name again?
Christina Halleck.
How do you spell your last name?
Halleck, Hallock. I'm with Matanuska Law.
Okay. Okay, fine. So Mr. Coleman is online, and Ms. Wilson, I know we sometimes take public comment. I do not see a objection on this particular application, at least in our packet. So what or how can we proceed with Ms. Halleck's request?
This is Joan Wilson. Boy, I am normally a person who says if someone takes the time to attend the meeting and has something that is of interest to the board, it should be conveyed. But I agree that the time for protest is past. I would then, out of caution and applying to statute and your past precedent, I would wait for comment.
Through the chair, Director Klinkhart.
Yes.
I just want to point out that that the objection period ends on the 9th of 8th. The board make any information. Thanks. Over.
Okay. Okay. Then Ms. Halleck, are you, if you would count your terms in terms of public comment, and if there is a formal objection, there is a process for a deadline for that. So, Ms. Halleck, if you could take just a couple of minutes and for public comment.
Thank you, yes, and I'll try to keep this short. We will be filing written objections before the deadline for green degree and the next degree, which is the next item on the agenda. But to keep it short, we believe that the premise diagrams in J02 that were submitted along with these applications encroach on the licensed premises of Alaska Frontier Cannabis. We also have issue with Mr. Coleman submitting these licenses. To do so is an alleged violation of Alaska Frontier Cannabis operating agreement. And we have other evidence attachments on Mr. Coleman that demonstrate his inability to comply with INCO regulations and applicable statutes and written objections as well.
Excuse me, this is Jaime. I'm gonna let me cut in here real fast. I don't know if it's my phone that sounds like real staticky, or if it's yours. I can barely hear you.
I'm getting the same thing, Chris.
Sounds like I really couldn't understand.
Are you on a
anything.
cell phone? Are you on a cell phone on a speakerphone?
I am. I've just turned it off the speaker. Is this better? I'm also hearing the kind of wind tunnel.
That's better, but there is a background. So if somebody is driving someplace with a mic open, please mute your phone. If somebody is standing outside with the wind blowing, please mute your phone. That's better. Ms. Halleck, I'll give you time to start over a little bit because I'm not sure that we heard all of what you're saying.
Absolutely, and I'll try to keep this as short as possible. In sum, the premise diagrams, the MJ02 that were submitted along with this license application and the next degree license application, which is the next item on the agenda, we believe encroaches on Alaska Frontier Cannabis's licensed premises. And whether to approve that licensed premises is an item on this agenda. I think it's tab 49. And we'll be making more comments there. We also believe that Mr. Coleman, by submitting these licenses, has violated the operating agreement of Alaska Frontier Cannabis. And based on 3 AAC 306-080, we are going to file written objections outlining these premise issues, the operating agreement issues, but also other activities by Mr. Coleman that demonstrate his unwillingness to comply with INCO regulations and applicable statutes.
Okay. And that basically applies to tab 29 and 30?
Yes, and as it relates to Alaska Frontier Cannabis.
Oh, the Alaska Frontier Cannabis, tab 49.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And with that, for the license 23988 green degree, are there questions for the applicant from the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is Bruce Schulte.
Yes.
I would like to hear the applicant's comments with regard to this objection. I'm still trying to understand what the nature of the objection is.
Okay.
If the applicant is aware, perhaps he could speak to it.
Mr. Coleman.
Yeah, Mr. Coleman, I see the chair. We have AFC, Alaska Frontier Cannabis, has a lease on that property, the same property, which is the building above, which you can see in the diagram, that we've reverted the AFC footprint back to that building, so it does not encroach on the AFC license at all, this new license, nor does the next degree. The next degree is all the way up further north of the property, not even close to the Alaska Frontier Cannabis license. We've reached out to Bob Mays, our old partner. There's a partnership that fell apart, essentially. That being said, yeah, I don't see any point of drawing these concerns before the board here today.
Through the chair, I'm still not understanding the nature of the conflict. I see a single structure, and according to the diagram, the premises diagram that we've got, and I'm looking at tab 29, according to that diagram, your licensed premises would be the entirety of this one structure. So what is the nature of the objection? Is there another building I'm not seeing? or are they saying that there's another licensed premises coincident, like in the same building?
So it's actually the licensed premises that we're describing here on this license 23398 is a fenced-in area with hoop houses. I'm not sure what diagram. I'm looking at diagram 1 and 5. There is also a building to the north end of the fenced-in area that is Alaska Frontier Cannabis, a different license that the woman on the line is referring to.
Could you refer to? I'm looking at the satellite photo on the last page of not satellite, aerial photo. The last page of the MJ2. Can you describe to me? Look at that aerial photo. What are we talking about?
You see where there's the land marker where it says S1, and you're looking at the Google Maps, the Matanuska map. Okay, so right there's a little building that you can hardly see, and if you look at the diagrams 1 and 5, it'll better kind of point out the building that I'm talking about. So this is the whole diagram that you're looking at. Is actually a fenced-in area. So the entire fenced-in area is part of our license diagram for this license that we're reviewing now.
Okay.
To the north end of that, sitting outside of the fenced-in area, is a smaller building.
And those are, looking at that diagram 1 of 5, those are north, to the north there?
To the north.
Almost off the edge of the diagram?
Correct. Yes.
How far away are they?
They butt right up next to it.
Excuse me, somebody is making noise in the kitchen. Looks like they're with silverware or something. Would you please mute your phone? Conversation with your child as well. If you can mute your phone, we'd appreciate it. Mr. Schulte, I think if you look at the aerial photograph, the last package, you will see a hashtag area and then a red that says S1.
Yeah.
Over on the right at the bottom, that red spot says equals license 14396. So I believe that red is the other licensed premises that's in dispute here.
Yeah, and what had taken place is that the hoop houses used to be under the license Alaska Frontier Cannabis. We have since then changed our premises diagrams to reduce it back to its original footprint that Bob Mays, that this woman on the phone is representing. That was his original footprint when we had became partners. Well, I invested all of the money. He didn't lift a finger to help build the hoop houses, and kind of fell apart as a business partnership. So we've given him his building back and his business back, and that's essentially where we filed our new license on the same property.
Who owns the property?
We have a purchase agreement with the current owner.
And the current owner is not the other licensee that's disputing your license. Okay.
Correct.
Thanks.
So, this is Jaime. Quick question. Without going to the MJ, are the two different structures listed as, like, let's say, Suite 1 and Suite 2, or is it listed as the exact same address?
Different addresses.
Okay.
This is Ms. Hallett. Can I clarify something very quick?
Please.
So, Mr. Coleman has said that AFC has reverted back and reduced its licensed premises. Currently pending on this board's agenda for today is approval of an operating plan change to make that change. Mr. Mays, the majority owner of AFC, was not aware of any of these applications, and he is not approving these changes. And without that prior notice, Mr. Coleman has no right to change the licensed premises. And so we will be objecting to, when we get to AFC's item on the agenda, changing the licensed premises, and without that change, these licensed premises encroach on each other.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wilson, do you have any advice at this point?
Have I heard that the protest period has not ended?
The protest period is not ended.
I think you need to hear the reasons why I'll call them the opposing party, doesn't believe this individual has jurisdiction to change the diagram.
Okay. So we're dealing with new licenses. The diagram change is back on a different tab. This is asking your advice, and I realize this is procedural. Given that the protest period doesn't end, we've been told a protest will come in. Would it be better for this board to table these two till the June meeting so that we have the protest and then we can address those as we move forward, especially if part of this application depends on an action that we have not yet taken that's on our agenda? Would that be a better process for this board to go through?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, is there any discussion among the board to that suggestion or a motion?
This is Kirby, could I step in and clarify something, if possible?
Sure.
At this time, the current lease for Alaska Frontier Cannabis is that small building, and for Green Degree and the Next Degree, we have active leases that are leasing us the current spaces that you guys are reviewing today.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I please just add that those leases are in dispute, as well as there's an option to purchase the entire land that is still outstanding.
Okay. And I think this back and forth is why I think we, as a board, might be better to have written protest, and then we have something more to go on. So I would entertain a motion to table license 23988 and 23989 to the June meeting, if the board's so willing to do so.
Mr. Chairman, would we also table tab 49?
We may when we get there, but I don't want to jump ahead that far.
Okay. I'll make a motion to table license 23988 and 23989 until the June meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Schulte. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'll call. The motion is to table license 23988 and 23989 to the June meeting. Mr. DeShook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So those two licenses are tabled until the June meeting.
I'll think about it. It's still, those two appeal.
So there's a side conversation going on. I'd appreciate it if you guys could mute your phone. I think we're getting into a section of this that may require some people to testify, even though it may very well be some very quick decisions. We are on ownership transfer applications, and this is tab 31, Rainforest Farms. Mr. Klinkart.
All right, Rainforest Farms. This particular one is an application to transfer the ownership. Make sure I got the right one. Yeah. Transfer the ownership of a standard marijuana cultivation facility in the city and borough of Juneau from Rainforest Farms, LLC, doing business as Rainforest Farms, LLC, to Turnigan Horticulture Company, doing business as Rainforest Farms. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve the delegation transfer, I guess, for license number 1006 Rainforest Farms.
Okay. Is delegation appropriate at this time, or is this just a transfer? Mr. Klinkhart?
Leave it as the transfer.
This is Jaime, actually. I think delegation might be appropriate because if I recall correctly, Rainforest Farms is severely delinquent in their taxes. I believe.
Okay.
So,
I appreciate you reminding me of that. Thank you. So the motion is to approve the transfer with delegation, and there was a second.
Jaime will second it.
Okay.
Does the applicants and transfers get a chance to speak?
Yes, if you give me a minute, I was going to ask who was on the line for the transfers.
Thank you.
And who is on the line?
This is James Barrett, owner of Rainforest Farms.
Okay.
And Seth Mullen with Turnigan Horticulture Company as well.
Okay. Are there questions from the board for either Mr. Barrett or Mr. Mullen?
This is Jaime. I just want to bring up once again the tax delinquency for Rainforest Farms.
Okay. Could either one of you address that?
Answer?
Yes.
Seth, you want to go ahead?
Absolutely. This is Seth Mullen. Earlier this morning, I actually spoke to
Excuse me. Just a minute. There's a conversation going on in the background. If you could please mute your phone. We have people trying to answer questions on this line. So go ahead, Mr. Mullen.
Okay. I've been working directly with the Department of Treasury, and I spoke with a gentleman by the name of Nick Dehart, or D-E-H-A-R-T, this morning, and this account is good. It's active, and we have come to an agreement with the Treasury Department on those delinquent taxes. With that said, he's told me that he was going to be reaching out to you guys this morning, I believe via email, to let you know that this account is in good standing.
Okay, Mr. Klinkhart, have we received any communication from the Department of Revenue?
I actually was checking my mail as you guys were talking. I did receive one thing from DOR, but not the one that you're referring to.
Okay. On your memo, it says creditor's response. You said one pending. Do you know who that's from?
This is Carrie Craig. We are checking with staff right now.
Okay. Okay. Are there other questions?
While they're checking on that, can I ask? This is Mr. Miller. In good standing, does that mean you're on a payment plan or you're 100% paid up?
No, that's correct. We've made substantial payments on this, and we were afforded the payment plan option, which we exercised.
And that was Mr. Barrett?
Yes, and so basically the way this goes is once the license is approved, the transfer, the new company can then help take over payments. So this is all a solution to us resolving any sort of debt that we had. And so a lot of it is kind of hinging on this transfer and approval. And if it's pending, it just might slow things down. And like Seth has echoed, that we're in good standing, and we've been talking and communicating with Department of Revenue on our payment plan, and we've been pretty current on that and really chomping at the bit and making good payments. So I'm sure she confirmed with them. So I would just ask if it's delegated that we're not waiting till June to finalize that transfer, because time is of the essence, and, we want to keep things moving. So if you need more time to check with Revenue, I understand that. But from our end, as far as we know, we're current on our payments to Revenue, and I'm sure they could verify that.
Mr. Chairman? That's what the delegation would be, is to verify that there's no objection from the Department of Revenue related to taxes. So,
and also that the obligation of those taxes get transferred to the Turnigan Horticulture Company, so that the state doesn't lose out in these taxes, or the city of Juneau.
Yeah.
Actually, they don't. They're still Rainforest Farms tax debt.
Yeah, the city of Juneau has no tax liability with Rainforest Farms with the cultivation. That's only state taxes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Schulte.
Couple of questions. How much money is currently owed to the state of Alaska?
Approximately $50,000.
Okay. And Turnagain Herb Company, they appear to be new to this industry, as far as I can recall. Is that the question?
For cultivation, yes, absolutely. I am the president of Turnagain Manufacturing Company, who's currently in litigation with a previous landlord for an illegal lockout, essentially. But with that said, this is totally separate from any other business. That's correct.
Okay, so you guys are buying into Rainforest Farms.
We're purchasing the company outright.
Okay.
The cultivation side.
And how are you financing that?
I've got a gentleman that has agreed to loan me the money for this debt once the license is transferred.
So you're buying the license, or you'd like to purchase a license without the tax obligation, correct?
No, part of the purchase agreement is to take care of these tax obligations.
Okay, so that is going to be transferred to the Turnagain Horticulture Company, the tax obligation.
That's correct. That's correct, yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I kind of alluded...
please,
sorry,
Mr. Schulte.
If I may. So, I kind of alluded to this early on when we were talking about the agenda. You know, the outstanding tax issue, I think, has become a problem for people in the industry at many levels, and I understand that that these guys, it's a challenging industry, so I'm not casting any aspersions here, but I do think that at some point we have to say, all right, you got to settle the accounts, like no kidding, before we're going to move forward. So if I'm going to vote to support this transfer, then what I would like to see as part of the delegation before the final approval is given by the inspectors, that the stipulation would be that they satisfy their tax debt 100%, that they owe nothing to the state of Alaska before they're allowed to continue operation under these new owners.
I would support, and I support the same.
This is Carrie Craig. I've heard from staff if you're interested in hearing what they had to say.
Yes, please.
Okay. So they say that Rainforest Farms LLC listed the state of Alaska as one of the creditors, but it might be related to the tax delinquency, and they had questions for us, but we haven't had a chance to do it. Oh shoot, sorry, I apologize. I lost that. 1 second. On a second note, DOR needs to sign off that they're compliant still as well. Both the DOR response and the creditor's response would be handled in delegation. Thank you.
So I think that answers your question, Mr. Schulte.
It kind of answers Mr. Schulte's question, but it doesn't. I mean, I support the language that Mr. Schulte said, and I think if this sale is to go through, the tax obligation needs to be paid in full to the state of Alaska. If not, this is just a scheme, just to keep, I'm not calling this a scheme, but it's similar to a scheme where you're just passing the buck further down the line and nobody ends up paying. It's you run up a huge debt, sell the business. Run up a huge debt, sell the business. And
Can I interject? This is James. Can I interject?
No. Mr. Jaime was asking a question, and I believe, and Ms. Wilson can correct me, the Department of the State of Alaska cannot transfer the debt to a different company. It remains Rainforest Farms debt. And how they arrange for that to be paid off, Rainforest has to do that. I don't think that debt transfers. A bank loan, maybe somebody else, but I don't think tax is transferable. And so DNR has to answer those questions. That's not something that I think we today can answer. And if they're satisfied that they're getting paid, then I think we can approve the transfer. And maybe Ms. Wilson can correct me, but I think that's the way that it has to operate, because DNR will not transfer the debt to a different company.
Mr. Chair, I honestly don't know the answer to your question. I could try to figure it out before the meeting ends, but you may have more experience than I do in your past time on the board.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, question?
Mr. Scholey.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, but I just want to make sure. So my assertion was that part of the delegation should include a verification that all debts owed to the state of Alaska have been satisfied in full before the final license is issued to the new owners. That's what I was getting at. Are we on the same page there?
I believe we are. In technicality, my assumption, this is strictly an assumption, is that the transfer gets approved. There is a cash transfer from the purchasing group to the selling group that would include sufficient funds for the selling group to pay their taxes. That may not be how they're financially doing it, and if it's not, then I think there's a problem. But if that's how they're doing it, then Rainforest would have the cash to pay the state. If they did not, the state would still go after the previous owners of Rainforest for the outstanding tax debt. That's my assumption based on years of experience of nonprofits and for-profits going out of business and much of my other kind of work. So I think that if we approve this with delegation, the delegation is we get a clearance from DNR that they are satisfied with the tax debt arrangements, then I think we would be okay to have this transfer.
And Mr. Chair, what you said sounds like the basic closing of any business transaction involving either property or collateral. So I did hear, I believe that Mr. Mullen had wanted to say something, unless I heard wrong, but I thought he might have some information relevant to this.
I think he did, and I cut him off because I think we had to have this discussion. So, Mr. Mullen?
It was actually Mr. Barrett that was trying to speak.
Yeah, and I apologize, and I agree with you, Mr. Jones. That's what I was trying to say was that we already are on a payment plan with revenue, and that this would just help it go through. As far as I know, they're not objecting to this transfer because they agree that we're on a good payment plan. And yes, the transfer of the license, the debt is always on Rainforest Farms LLC until it's paid. So this is just our way to become solvent and catch up. So, that's our ultimate end goal here. And so I just hope that's understanding. Yeah. So I understand what you're saying, and I apologize for interjecting there earlier.
And I think that's the way it goes. When you buy a house, you have to pay some of the property tax. The previous owner pays the other based on the timing of the closing. So I just think that this is similar. And I share all of your concerns, but I also think that if we don't rely on DNR's rules, then we may be putting both of these businesses in a corner they can't figure a way out of. So with that, are there any other questions? I think the director would and the attorney will understand the delegation on this one.
So Mr.
nothing
Miller,
else.
I have one more question.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
So I believe it was a gentleman from Turnagain Herb Company said that he found some guy to loan him money.
That is correct.
Yes?
I've got a private, yes, that's correct. I've got a private line of credit with a gentleman.
Okay, is that gentleman Industry Source Consulting?
No, it is not.
Okay, because they made an announcement that I think sometime back in December, where they provided you a line of credit and cash, and I'd like to know about that relationship.
Yes, well, that relationship, that's a company that my father is actually a part of, and this is something that he would like to help me with. And he understands that we have to nurse this business back to health, and that's exactly what we're intending to do. With that said, our goal is once the license is transferred, is to upgrade the facility in order to increase the output, therefore making the business operate in the black as it should.
Mr. Miller, do you have a follow-up?
I would. I mean, yeah. I mean, if this funding is coming from an outside consulting company, I guess I would like to understand what the payment terms are. And I mean, am I right that this could constitute some outside ownership?
They have no issue. They have no say in the actual operation of the business. They have no control over the business whatsoever. With that said, the agreement that we have in place is to pay back over the course of 5 years.
Mr. Miller, do you have a follow-up?
I probably will.
Okay.
Ask further questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Schulte.
I remain curious about this relationship. INSCO or INSO, whoever they are, who are they? Where are they located?
It's my father's company. He's based in Atlanta, Georgia.
For the board, we have sometimes asked applicants where their financing comes from. Some have said it's family. Some have said that they have a business loan from somebody. And as long as they have said there's no control over the business, they're not an owner. We've done that before. We've had family members renting out property they own for $1 a year to help a son or whatever. So I certainly understand with ISO being out of Georgia and the history of taxes to question this. I just simply want to remind us that we have in the past asked people about how they're financing it. Oftentimes it's been family or a family friend that is loaning them the money, and we have always accepted that. So I just want to make sure that you remember those.
Okay, thanks. I don't think I have other questions.
Mr. Schulte?
I don't think I have any other questions right now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other questions to be asked of the applicants? Okay. So on the motion to approve the transfer with delegation, and that delegation primarily being DNR's response to the tax issue, Mr. DeShook.
Excuse me, can I couldn't get my mute button off. My name is Joe Egamo, and I just wanted to, you were asking a lot of questions, and I hate to interrupt because I understand protocol, but if you want to know my answer, I'd be glad to share it with you.
Well, I had a motion I was trying to vote. Does anybody on the board want to?
I was very sorry. I couldn't get my mute button off before. I'm sorry. Very sorry.
That's okay.
Joe Egamo is not party to this, just for the record. He is the former landlord that I'm currently in litigation with.
Okay. So no, I don't think appropriate at this time, not on this application.
No problem.
So on the vote, Mr. DeShuck.
At this time, I'd vote no.
Mr. Jaime?
No.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
No.
And I'm a yes. So that fails 3-2, or 2 yeses and 3 nays. Ms. Wilson, question, what are these two businesses' recourse at this point?
It sounds like the board reached a final decision, and they should receive notice of that final decision and a right to appeal that decision. What I also heard, though, is you want more information about whether the debt to the state would be complete, and another potential might be to table this until the next meeting, to withdraw that vote and table to see if that new information satisfies your concerns. If it's something other than the taxes, if it's the ownership issue, then that wouldn't accomplish your aim.
Okay. Is there any further action that the board wants to take on this application?
So this is Jaime, and like I said, I was a no vote, and I would not be opposed to tabling this because, you know, these businesses do need to move forward, but on the same token, the state needs to get paid, and I don't like, you know, not that I don't trust the owners of Rainforest Farms or the other owner, but I need more information. Until I get that, I am not comfortable saying, voting yes on this.
Okay, then one motion might be to rescind our action. Second motion is to table to the call of the chair, and we will work with staff and in order not to hold this until June, if we can deal with the tax issue, then we can hold a quick teleconference meeting. Would that be acceptable to the board? And if so, I would need 2 motions. One is to rescind our previous vote, and then to table to the call of the chair.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to. Sorry, go ahead.
I'd move to table or to rescind our last vote and to table until the call of the chair. DeShock.
Yes.
Do you need 2 separate motions, or can we do that in one?
Ms. Wilson.
Let's do it in 2.
Okay. We will take the first part, so we will separate the motion. The first part is to rescind our previous vote. Is there any objection from the board? Hearing none, that's approved. The motion now is to table to the call of the chair. Mr. DeShook?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's 4-1 to table to the call of the chair. And I will get with the director and the attorney as early as I can next week, and we'll see if we can work out the information related to the taxes and get back to the applicants just as quickly as we can. Okay. Let's hope that the rest of the transfers are easier. Thought we were doing really good on time, and despite all of our things here. So we're up on tab 32, which is Northern Lights Indoor Gardens, LLC, and this is a transfer of ownership. So, Mr. Klinkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application to transfer the controlling interest of Northern Lights Indoor Gardens, LLC, doing business as Northern Lights Indoor Gardens, LLC, which holds a standard marijuana cultivation facility license in the city and borough of Sesson. The transfer involves a change in ownership percentage from Micah Miller at 50% and Michael Daly at 50% to Michael Daly at 55% and Lorraine Daly at 45%. Over.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Move to approve license transfer, license number 10136, Northern Lights Indoor Gardens. Schulte.
Okay, is anybody on the line from Northern Lights Indoor Gardens?
Yes, this is Jason Brandeis. I'm the attorney for Northern Lights Indoor Gardens, and I believe that Lorraine Daly might be on the line as well.
Okay.
I would also mention that. Oh, I'm sorry, Lorraine. This application and the next one are they're related. They're the same.
Yes, I know.
For two entities.
Right.
Thank you.
And basically, this is so Micah Miller is dropping off, and Michael Daly, and then Lorraine Daly. Michael's increasing his share, and Lorraine Daly is a new owner. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicants? Okay. On the vote then to approve the transfer request for license 10136 on Northern Lights Indoor Gardens LLC, Mr. Heine.
Yes.
Mr. DeShook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the next one is license 10138, Northern Lights Indoor Gardens LLC, and I believe the request is the same. So do I have a motion?
Move to approve transfer license number 10138, Northern Lights Indoor Gardens. Schulte.
Okay, is there any discussion from the board? Okay, on the question to approve the transfer of license 10138, Mr. DeShook?
Yes.
Mr. Heine?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. Next item up then is license.
Before you move on, Mr. Chair, Joan Wilson, I'm just looking at the memo, and it looked like there were some local government response and a DOR response that were pending. Was that last motion by delegation?
Hang on for a second. So the tab 33. So you're talking about the.
This is
tab
Carrie Craig.
33
I believe the motions were not with delegation for both license 10136 and 10138.
They were not.
And the question was, did you need it? Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Mr. Schulte?
Yeah, I apologize. I was actually trying to raise this question, but I had my phone muted at a crucial moment. I wanted to ask if there were any outstanding taxes for the cultivation. Would it be fair to ask that question now?
Yes, I think we could, although on the memo it says Department of DOR response 3-6, they're compliant. So that's all I know.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Brandeis, can you answer that question, please?
To my knowledge, there are no outstanding taxes.
Through the chair, this is Director Klinghardt. I just looked at the last list I got on tax, and they are not shown on it. Over.
Okay.
So I guess do we need delegation for these transfers?
I didn't think so, but maybe Ms. Wilson can clarify.
No, I just, in reading the memo, I couldn't tell if you were waiting on more information for your decision. So I'm hearing from Ms. Craig that no delegation is necessary, and that's fine with me.
Okay.
If there are pending items, if we're still waiting for local government, if that's what it says in the memos, then we will need with delegation. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to the memo. At least it says here that the local government response is pending. If the maker of the motion on 10136 and 10138 are agreeable to add delegation, if that's agreeable, we will do those approvals with delegation. Hey, I want to be procedurally correct. I can't make that choice on my own. So the maker of the motion has to agree to add delegation.
I'm sorry. And since I did make that motion, I would agree to that. Apologies.
Okay. Okay. Is that sufficient, Ms. Wilson?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are at tab 34, Happy Trees. So Mr. Klinkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an application to transfer the ownership of a standard marijuana cultivation facility in the Fairbanks North Star Borough from Happy Trees, LLC, doing business as Happy Trees, LLC, to Roybal Enterprises, LLC, doing business as Happy Trees, LLC. This is Happy Trees, license number 13416. Over.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve transfer of license number 13416, Happy Trees, LLC. Schulte.
Okay, with delegation, I believe the memo says that the local government response is pending.
With delegation. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Okay, who is on the line from Happy Trees?
This is Brandon Roybal.
Okay, Brandon. All right, are there any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, Bruce Schulte.
Yes, Ms. Schulte.
Just the standard one. Are there any taxes outstanding?
Mr.
Yes. No, there are no outstanding taxes. Our state revenue is paid in full.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
Okay. The only question I have, and I'll make this part of the delegation, is generally there is a MJ17D that is signed that says that this transfer does not have any changes to the operating plan. That form is not in my packet. So from the delegation, either that form needs to be completed and signed, or the staff needs to determine if and what operating plan changes there are. I think that's one of the things that we were trying to do with that form, was if nothing's going to change except the ownership, they need to sign that 17D, and that's absent in my packet. So I would make that part of the delegation.
Mr. Chair, this is Director Klinkhart.
Yes.
I do see in my packet a MJ17D signed saying there will be no changes to this operating plan for this license and initialed by the transferee. Over.
Okay. Then if that's there, then I'm fine with that, but that was not part of the packet that I downloaded. Okay. Any other discussion from the board? Hearing none on the motion to approve the transfer Happy Trees LLC with delegation, Mr. Deschuk?
Yes.
Mr. Heine?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, tab 35, license 13864, Simple House LLC. Mr. Klinkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is an application to transfer the controlling interest of Simple House LLC, doing business as Simple House LLC, which holds a limited marijuana cultivation facility license in the Matsu Borough. The transfer involves a change in ownership, a percentage from Mark Opengard at 50% and Dane Ferguson at 50% to Mark Opengard at 100%. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Oops, sorry, got to unmute myself. Move to approve license transfer, license number 13864, Simple House. With delegation.
With delegation, we have Fire Marshal and Department of Labor response.
I see that. With delegation. Schulte.
Okay. Is there a second?
Jaime will second it.
Okay, thank you. Who is online from Simple House?
Mark Opengard. Yes, Jana Wilson and Mark Opengard, Jana Wilson, attorney for Simple House.
Okay. Are there any questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Is Dane Ferguson available by chance?
No.
No, Dane's on the phone. Dane, are you out there?
Okay, Mr. Schulte.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I wanted to ask about any outstanding taxes. And I guess, are we certain that Dane's on board with this transfer?
That was my concern.
Yeah, you would think that would be obvious, but not so much.
Well, this is Jana. I guess I just don't understand why that wouldn't be obvious.
Well, because it's come up in a couple of other tabs previously.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, my understanding is that he has some stuff that he wanted to take care of, and he didn't want to be a part of the business, and so this is the arrangement that the owners made, and Mark is taking over 100%. And to answer the question about taxes, according to the memo, the Department of Revenue has confirmed that this company is compliant.
Thank you.
Okay, on the motion to approve the transfer of license 13864 with delegation, Mr. Heine.
I'm going to say no, but, and just because in the future I'd like to be able to speak to all parties involved. And I know I just throw it out there now, but that's the reason.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Deshuk?
Yeah.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that motion passes 4-1. Okay, we have two more to do here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
License 14099, Frosty Flower. And that is tab 36. Mr. Klinkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is an application to transfer the ownership of marijuana cultivation facility in the Matsu Borough from James E. Sullivan, doing business as the Frosty Flower, to Frosty Enterprises, LLC, doing business as Frosty Flower. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve license transfer of license number 14099, Frosty Flower, with delegation. Schulte.
Is there a second?
Mr. Jaime, I'll second it.
Thank you. Who's online for Frosty Flowers?
So Janet Weltine, attorney for Frosty Enterprises, LLC, and James Sullivan, who is also the sole member of Frosty Enterprises, LLC, is on the line.
Okay. Are there any questions of the applicants?
Mr. Chairman, Bruce Schulte.
Mr. Schulte.
Okay, so this time I actually read the memo, and it does say DOR response date pending. So, with regard to taxes, are they current on taxes?
Yes. James, do you want to answer that?
Yes, I'm current on all taxes.
Okay. Why does it say pending then under the DOR response? Is that we just haven't heard back from them yet? Is that
Mr. Klinkert?
I can tell you from the list I got from them from the Department of Revenue, as of March 19th, they were not listed. Over.
Thank you. I have other questions.
Any other questions? Okay,
so this
on the
transfer,
question,
is it just to transfer it into an LLC?
That's correct. So it's just so it's just transferring 100% from James as a person, as a sole proprietor, to an LLC, so he has limited liability protection under the company, and so he's just a sole member of that LLC. So all parties are present.
Oh, thanks for asking that, because I thought that sounded odd. Now I know why. Okay, thanks.
And this is Joan Wilson. It is an Alaskan registered LLC, from what I can tell, looking at the file.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so on the motion to approve the transfer of license 14099 with delegation, Mr. DeShook?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, so that is all of the license transfers. No, I guess there's one more. No, this is a license conversion. Voodoo Cannabis Company, license number 11920. Mr. Klinkert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Alaska Joint Ventures, LLC, doing business as Voodoo Cannabis Company, is in the municipality of Anchorage. They are applying to convert their limited marijuana cultivation facility license to a standard marijuana cultivation facility. Currently, I see that the local government response is still pending and the fire marshal response is deferred. Over.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve conversion of... Sorry, I had to make sure I was unmuted. Move to approve conversion of license number 11920, Voodoo Cannabis Company. And I'm trying to look here, see if there's delegation required. Yeah, I guess
put in a delegation just in case.
Yeah,
Anchorage.
Local government responsibility. Right. Okay, with delegation. Thank you, Schulte.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, DeShock.
Okay, thank you. Who's online for Voodoo Cannabis Company?
This is Colleen Howard. I'm the president of Alaska Joint Ventures.
Is that Colleen Howard?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. I can, just barely, but I just wanted to make sure I had the name correct. Are there questions from the board?
I just have a quick question on the memorandum. It says reference grass station 4913949. Is that just a typo?
I believe that is a typo.
Okay.
There are a couple more. I think this was a copy-paste memo, and they didn't copy part of it, or they didn't paste part of it. There are a couple others that I think I have marked as bad, and but that was one of my first ones.
Mr. Chair, this is Casey DeShock. I was just wondering, I've got the package in front of me. I can read through this, but perhaps somebody can just speak to the intent of the conversion of the license, just so I can hear it before I vote.
Ms. Howard?
So he's asking me why I want to convert from limited to standard?
Yes.
For more growing room?
Okay.
Perfect.
Is that answer your question, Mr. Bishop?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that'll work. I was just looking for the broader, the the idea of what the accomplished.
Excuse me, Mr. Dijak. Somebody's rattling around in a box or a desk or something. Please mute your phone. We can hardly hear Mr. Deshuk calling in from Dillingham. Mr. Deshuk, if I understand your question, the broader question is, when we originally came up with the cultivation, we came up with the limited, which is 500 square feet or less, and then the standard cultivation. They have different licensing fees and certainly different requirements. Last year, there was a discussion of some limited wanted to expand and to basically convert. We did not have a process by which, so we set up this process where they could apply to convert from a limited to a standard. They would have to pay the additional licensing fee and they'd be able to expand. We've had at least one standard go down to limited, but we've had 3 or 4 limited that have gone to standard. They've figured out their grow process and they think they can use more space. So I think from a general point of view, what's been presented to the board is along that line, and maybe Mr. Miller might have more to say since he's a limited cultivator himself.
No, I don't think I don't have anything to add, but I mean the short story is it gives someone who has a 500 square foot grow an easy path to just add more floor space, not necessarily change a bunch of processes and do other things, but to grow their facility.
Okay. Makes sense to me.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Ms. Howard, the question I have, and I need this information so that the director knows that as part of the delegation. Because of your expansion, are you required to go back through a process with the municipality of Anchorage, either to amend what processes or permits you have from them? And if so, are you in that process now?
Yeah, so we have to do another SLUP for that unit in the back. And then we have to go through the economic development meeting again and the assembly meeting as well, since we're doing more than a 50% increase in footprint.
Okay, thank you. So, Director, you would note that as part of the delegation. Since you said the local government response was pending, I assume that if that process gets started, you may be notified. So just wanted to make sure that that was clear, given that Anchorage has different sets of rules than a lot of other places. Are there any other questions for the applicant for this license conversion? Okay, so on the question of approving with delegation the license conversion 11920, Mr. Deshuk?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Jaime?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that conversion is approved.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. License renewal applications, we have one Danish Gardens, license 10310. And I'm assuming that this is a renewal and back to us because of the NOVs and also maybe taxes. So is there a motion?
I will move to approve renewal of 10310
Okay.
Danish Gardens, but
Right. Let's get I got the motion.
I will second for discussion.
Okay. Who's online with Danish Gardens? Is anybody online with Danish Gardens? Okay. and we will wait and check again before we get off today, and or check again before we get off tomorrow. So we will simply delay that, and if Ms. Gregg, if you could help to remind me at some point to go back to that, I would appreciate it, because I will certainly forget.
Can I ask a question?
No problem, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Miller.
Were they on the agenda for the last meeting as well and didn't attend?
Applicant not present at the January 2020 meeting. That's correct.
Okay.
That's part of the for consideration on the agenda. So I would, if they're not on by tonight or by the time we get done tomorrow, maybe in the meantime the staff could reach out, email or something to say, you know, please get on, or because this is a cultivation facility, and if they're still operating and we haven't renewed and we're in April and the renewal period was last July or August, and they haven't attended our meetings, we might be in a real enforcement structure here, given these times we may not want to be in terms of seizing product in a cultivation facility. So staff could reach out to tell them that it is important to the board that they be here. I think that would be very appreciated by me anyway.
We will take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, it is 5 minutes to 4. I think we have made really, really good progress. I am willing to, I would like to end by 4:15. I have a meeting at 6 o'clock and I need some prep time and some downtime. So I would like to continue on the operating plan changes until around 4:15. I have really appreciated the board's response. I think we have gotten through in a circumstance that none of us wanted to be. A lot of work today, and I think it's going to shorten our meeting tomorrow and provide us time to have some real discussions about some of the things that the marijuana industry brought up, and we do have the executive session in the morning. So if nobody has any objections, I think we have about another 15-20 minutes that we could go on. So if we do that, we're on to operating plan changes. This is tab 39, and it is license 10015, Great Land Ganja LLC. Mr. Klinkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great Land Ganja LLC, a standard marijuana cultivation facility, is requesting approval of amendments to its operating plan. Attached in your packet are 2 MJ15 operating plan change forms and current approved pages from the operating plan. The first MJ15 involves updates to growing mediums, fertilizers, and chemicals used in cultivation. It was temporarily approved at the time. The second MJ15 was not reviewed for temporary approval because it involves a change to the waste disposal plan that does not include rendering marijuana waste unusable. It is now to you, the board. Over.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the plan changes for Great Land Ganja?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I was trying to unmute myself. Yes, motion to approve the operating plan changes. License number 10015, Great Land Ganja, Bruce Schulte.
With delegation?
With delegation, thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody online from Great Land Ganja LLC?
Yes, Jana Waltini for Great Land Ganja, and Leif Abel is on the phone, one of the owners of Great Land Ganja, and I'm going to let him lead the discussion because this is, he knows his facility the best, and this is particularly to his
facility. And could you spell the first name, please?
Yes, Lief.
And this is Leif.
Okay.
It's actually Leif.
Leif. I knew it. I always do that.
Okay. Thank you. So we have two MJ15s. One says temp approved. Are there any questions related to the MJ15 that was temporarily approved? Okay, hearing none, let's move to the operating plan change that is labeled needs board consideration. And I believe it is updated marijuana waste disposal plan. And it is sort of on a continuation page, describe waste disposal arrangements. So, Mr. Abel, if you could explain this, other than if there's any explanation beyond what is written here, and then we'll have the board ask you questions.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot more to add other than what's laid out. One of the reasons I took so many words to lay out is it's sort of outside of your standard grow, as far as like what you would picture a warehouse cultivation, how they take care of waste in Anchorage. So their standard way of taking care of waste in Anchorage would be to go ahead and say they pulled leaves off of plants for defoliation. Then they would have a bucket of leaves that they would have to report as waste. Of course, they have to notify AMCO before they're going to render it unusable and take it off of site. I believe that's how it works anyway. And then there's an MJ26 notification for that to give AMCO time to, I would assume, double check things. We have a standard cultivation facility in several acres of fence line, greenhouses, and we have these large concrete bins that store our waste. The waste does compost over time. The waste never gets, and it does that on its own. It's just put in the bins. We have two bins, and so the idea is that after one bin gets full, we start filling the other. And so since the start of Great Land Ganja, we've never done anything to destroy waste or export waste off of our facility premise, and nor have we ever filled out the MJ form for reporting such destruction or transportation of waste off said premise, because we never have had to and that doesn't really fit what we plan to do. And I say what we plan to do because that's why I've applied for this request, is that we have currently waste in the compost bins. We don't intend on taking it off of site. That's not really needed. What would be fine to do with that waste, which is actually probably, according to a scientist, no longer cannabis because it's been sitting there doing its own thing. The biolife's been eating it. We plan to take that waste and just fill in low spots of our licensed premise, and whereby the lawn will grow onto it and become landscaping, basically, growing alternative crops with composted cannabis, having never left the premise. The sort of what I ran into when looking at this is it doesn't really quite fit what AMCO is used to right now, and it doesn't really fit the form for reporting waste. So obviously I've done all of my obligatory waste reporting to date. When my cultivators take the leaves off the plants, the waste is recorded like it's supposed to be according to the system. All of those rules are being followed. The hitch comes that basically there's a form that I'm supposed to send you before I make waste unusable and ship it off property. Well, I'm never planning on shipping it off property. The waste sort of made itself unusable by sitting there and composting, and now I just want to take it from my bin and spread it around in the low spot. But I don't want to cause a violation for my company by doing so. And so that's why I've applied for this change.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from the board?
This is Jaime. I have a question. I'm glad to think outside the box. And as long as in my opinion, as long as it's logged into metrics and it's unusable, as of right now, I seem to be okay with that. But Director Klinkart, can you tell me, have investigators went out there and examined these concrete boxes to make sure that the waste or plant material is unusable?
Through the chair, I do not have an answer to that, but I'll see if I can get that for you. Over.
Okay. Like I said, I like the fact that he's thinking outside the box. I was talking to another cultivator down here that she complained that, you know, the disposal of the waste is, I guess, an issue for cultivators. But I don't know if that is or not overall. That's it.
Is there any other questions from the board? The question I would ask is, a lot of early on, and to some extent still, there were some more limited cultivators, but some of the standard, given the standard is quite large, talked about they would take the waste and compost it for their vegetable garden, their lawn. At some point, some people were thinking about trying to do commercial composting. But all of those would do the typical, I don't know if typical is the right word, composting process, where they would take other organic material, mix it in. Our compost people here pick up, you know, garbage and food waste. They some things they don't take, some things they do. They mix it with dirt, they mix it with sawdust, they mix it with other things to basically make over a time these composts. Yours is just simply leaving out adding anything more to it, not adding any dirt, not adding any organic material, which I'm not sure, and maybe Ms. Wilson and I didn't have a chance to sort of look at the regulations, whether or not that fits into our regulations. But certainly using it for compost has been approved, but generally that compost it is mixed with other products, and yours is composting without that mix, basically using only the original raw material. Is there a particular reason? Is it faster that way? Is it less cumbersome on you? How long does it take? Does it take a year, and can you store 2 years of and use that much compost? That would be my question.
Sure. Through the chair, I can explain further. So, to answer your question, it's about efficiency. You kind of nailed it. You kind of got your way around to that in your question. Obviously, if I was making compost for my organic cannabis plants here, which we do grow, you can't label them that, but we use organic processes and amendments. I would, of course, use inoculants, and I would use you want to have, you know, some earthworm castings or some animal manure or animal blood and fat, and you want that combined with your organic matter, you know, some sort of grass or steer manure or whatever. That composts out very quickly, makes soil much faster. The simple purpose for this is due to regulations. So as the regulations formed up, you know, and some of this stuff kicked in as we were already operating, but as the regulations formed up and the MJs started being required for the reporting of the waste, I saw that happen, but I wasn't required to because I wasn't shipping waste off of site and I wasn't combining it with anything, and so I didn't need to send those MJs in. Well, but what I saw when that reg kicked in was that if I did want to grind it up and combine it with something else, that I would have to report to that to you guys. So that's why I let it sit there and I let Mother Nature compost it and I don't add anything into it. To answer your question, I was not adding anything to it because I was trying to follow regulations. Now, as to how much I can store, I've got 2 large bins. We've been operating since the summer of 2017, and we've never done anything but put weed waste into those 2 bins and properly report it according to the system. Initially, when the by gram as it's taken off the plant, or by a pound or whatever other system or whatever system there was. And I say that because in the very beginning you couldn't even record it in metric. We were recording it in 2-gallon buckets before they opened metric up in the very beginning when the state had us first operating. So I'm explaining a lot here, but so you know, these bins, that's all the waste from the very beginning. And now I simply want to take it out of the bin and spread it inside my licensed premise. So picture it this way. My entire fence line and my entire acreage is already licensed for cannabis. It's already licensed for all phases of operation. If you look at my operating plan, you can see that I can grow and store cannabis anywhere on this acreage. That's what we've licensed it for. And so I really what I'm asking to do is take waste out of a compost bin. That is, you know, it's definitely not smokable, usable cannabis. That's why we have two bins, right? So one builds up for a while, then it'll sit there a while and it'll decompose, and while we fill up the second bin, right? And so I just want to take it and put it in a low spot and grow grass on it within my licensed premise. Would never leave the premise. And I hope that answered any questions, and I'm happy to answer more.
Any further questions by the board? Ms. Wilson, do you have any guidance on this, given our regulations on waste disposal from cultivators?
It sounds like he's mixing it with dirt when he puts it on his low ground, unless I'm mishearing him.
Through the chair, this is Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller.
Maybe I can explain it in a different way, because I actually do this. I grind my waste and mix it with dirt and put it in a compost pile, but I mix it with dirt because I have to take it outside my licensed premise or my licensed area, right? I can't do it inside there. What I'm hearing from Great Land Ganja is they have a very large area, so they don't really have to do anything to it other than put it in the bin because it's stayed inside the premise. So I think we're all used to when people say they're going to compost it, they do, but it's not inside their licensed area. And I think that's the main difference of why he doesn't have to mix it with dirt or anything else. And I think he's just clarifying that through his operating plan.
Okay. Are there any other questions from board members?
Not for me.
Okay, so hearing none, there is a motion on the floor to approve the operating plan change for license 10015, which would include both the temporary approved changes and the changes requested that the board act on. Hearing no further discussion, take the vote. Mr. DeShook?
Yes.
Mr. Heine?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. I think as part of the delegation, if, given all the restrictions on travel, given the restrictions on our investigators, if it is possible that somebody could put eyes on this before just to report back would be great for me. But I also understand that if this can't be because of the restrictions on travel and the safety of our staff, I will understand. Okay, so we are done with that. I believe we probably have time for
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
This is Kirby here. I would ask you to go back to our two tabs, our two licenses, maybe through the chair, if I could talk to the attorney. Putting us onto the June 10th and 11th meeting would put us past the 90-day marker that the board has to make a decision on our application.
Mr. Chair,
we were deemed complete.
Suspension of that during the, and it's a matter for your consideration to request the suspension of that from the governor, since it is a regulatory statute and he is permitted to suspend deadlines that cannot be achieved due to the coronavirus 19 outbreak. So if you decide not to do that, you can perhaps address that issue tomorrow, but I would recommend that you address that issue first.
Okay. Ms. Craig, if you could put that on our agenda, and after our executive session, we will take up that particular issue. Mr. Coleman, can you remind me which tabs they were?
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure what I'm looking at. You've been one number off all day, but what I'm looking at is tab number 27 and 28 and 29 are the two licenses that, and then we are up for review for change of operating plan tomorrow as well under tab 48 is what I'm looking at, Alaska Frontier Cannabis.
So you are Green Degree and Next Degree tab 29 and 30?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Craig, if you would remind me after the executive session and any thing we have to do an open meeting after that, then we will take up that issue.
No problem, Mr. Chair. Will do.
Thank you. Okay. With that, I'm showing it's 4:15 on my iPad and iPhone. And I apologize for the others, and I realize that most of you probably didn't expect us to get this far. I was hoping to be a little bit farther, but we are going to recess until 9 o'clock tomorrow, in which we will come into open session and then immediately go into executive session. So for those on the phone, I probably wouldn't call in until, I hate to give a time because I don't know, but I would assume that probably 9:45 would probably be a good time to call in, and we will probably be back in open session by 9:45 tomorrow morning. And then we will try to complete our work, and if we're really, really good, although some of these new products may take a while. But anyway, I want to thank you all. I think getting through all of the discussion we had on various topics, the executive session, which I was not anticipating, and to get up through tab 39 and doing it all on the telephone. I really appreciate the cooperation of everybody. And unless anybody has any other comments, we are recessed until 9 o'clock Friday, April 3rd.
See you guys tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you all very much. I appreciate all the efforts.